So, Michael, do you want to talk more about it?
Just a little bit. I think it was actually the very typical roadmap I've seen where they've got diamonds and triangles and they run an effort along those and show you the milestones and they call it a roadmap, but it's really just a master schedule for all their initiatives.
Okay. Does anybody else want to comment on this?
There are different types of roadmaps. Strategic roadmaps, product roadmaps, project roadmaps, right? So they all kind of cover different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do, but some of the project roadmaps are actually probably more like IMSs, but they happen to label them a roadmap. A roadmap should show you better the destination more so than the explicit path, and that's kind of what I'm getting at, the exact path to get there.
That's good.
Meg-
So,
Meghna, this is
sorry,
Vishal.
go
The
ahead. Go ahead,
roadmap.
Vishal.
So one thing when we look at from all this perspective, the roadmap is basically needs two things. Like, okay, we need the beginning of the journey that is like, okay, your current thing, which is a baseline thing, and you need a target, okay, or a future state. So usually the future state is like, okay, can be termed as a vision. So how do we get from there to the vision is the part. If we define it in the business outcome terms, it's a business roadmap. If we define it in the terms of technology, okay, it becomes a project or a technology roadmap. That's how we use it at my place.
Very good. So, the great advantage. Sorry, was there anybody else? Okay, the great advantage of roadmaps in aiding the EA architects with planning them, but they make for an excellent communications tool to garner, execute, and to disseminate the plan out to the entire organization. And do you want to be a little fast on this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's just, I guess, the most common way I see roadmaps within my organization, right? They kind of use them as a communications tool as well as a planning tool.
That's good. Yeah, I remember the discussion, even Pinky had mentioned about communication. So, can you talk anything about it? Okay, I set up or okay. So, current to future state. We just attacking low-hanging fruit early in the EA management plan to demonstrate value sooner than later, which efforts continued buy-in by the stakeholders and executive sponsorship. Roadmaps use change efforts. The transition to future EA should align business and IT. So what map is the way it kind of tells you everything, or is it something which is not clear? Or what else would you say that the roadmap could help you get to the future state? Anybody?
That makes a great point, and that successes can sometimes garner better support later on. No successes doesn't really, go that well. Now, there's a conflict here. If you get the early success, you really, I assume, in his roadmaps, you've still got the ultimate future EA that moves business and how IT is supporting it closer together, like Jennifer says.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So I think the roadmap team can take over. John, do you want me to transfer it to you?
Yes, that'd be great. Thanks, Meghna.
Okay.
All right. Can everyone see that? All right. Thank you. Thanks, you.
Yes.
All right. I think we're going to start off with Clay.
Yeah, okay. So we're all set. Okay, so please feel free to ask questions, raise your hand, type in the chat, and we'll try and get to you. So my name's Clay Prue, and on behalf of the EA 871 Module 8 team, we're pleased to have this opportunity to present the topic of roadmaps to you. Allow me to introduce the team and tonight's agenda. So my name's Clay, and I'm going to be reviewing the concepts of roadmaps. Next is Jennifer Faleris. We'll cover when and why organizations would want to create a roadmap. Michael Mark will outline the strategies for success. So with that, let's begin our roadmap journey. So this is what we learned from our readings. We found a common theme that content simplicity and a unifying message was what roadmaps really are, and creating them is almost like a blending of disciplines that form some kind of an art form. So go to the next slide. Next slide, sorry. Okay, here we go. So Blanton and McGregor defined a roadmap as a graphical representation.
Hey, Clay, you're fading in and out for some reason.
Sorry. How's this? Is that better?
That's good, right there.
Okay. So they're used to illustrate milestones and deliverables required to manage change over a period of time. How's that? Is that better?
Going good.
Still wobbly. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So when I broke that definition down into simpler ideas, I found that roadmaps tell stories of evolution while pointing a path to the future. So why would you want to use like a pictorial representation over like an email or maybe even a podcast? And so certainly those forms of communication can communicate the basic ideas of what's expected and then the timelines. But our team learned that roadmaps offer immediate recognition of complex and ambiguous views of the future. Or sorry, ambitious views of the future. Since they appeal to the visual medium, they communicate more efficiently than any other series of emails or conversations can over a period of time. Am I coming in okay now? Am I still okay? A roadmap in its most simple form brings an audience together and invokes introspection and essentially unites everyone into a single voice. So many people often say that that's essentially bringing everybody onto the same page. And if that's the result, communicating the goals of a strategic initiative, that's the ultimate you can do in a short amount of time. This is important because all the possible competing forces within an enterprise, from political environments to a patchwork of complex technical solutions, roadmaps allow stakeholders the opportunity to further refine, validate, and plan for an envisioned future the organization is attempting to achieve. Done properly, when an audience views a roadmap, they should be inspired and be contemplating the future and how they should be getting to this ultimate state. Next slide. So in its simplest form, map components are just shapes, right? And you're free to use anything you want. These are the ones from Gartner. Whatever you use, try to stay consistent so you don't lead your audience to confusion or any kind of ambiguity. Remember, the goal is to communicate an idea and the small incremental steps on getting there. So where he's pointing right now is the future state. And this is basically a strategic goal that's been defined by the enterprise. It should be outcome oriented, and it should link to the path of the strategic initiative, and it should be targeted and measurable. We'll get to how you would show that on the map later here in a second. If you could point to the current state. This is the indicator of the current or lacking capability of the organization, and it serves as a starting point for where you're at. The journey itself will be a path of gain capabilities. So right there, yeah, right. This allows the enterprise to conceptualize the incremental journey of success towards a strategic goal. And then the business outcomes are linked to key performance indicators, and they are gained along the way. It allows the enterprise to measure the success in an incremental fashion. And then for risks and disruptors, those are the internal or external events having a direct impact on the completion of that period's business capability. The difference between, excuse me, the difference between a disruptor and a risk is that risks you have more control over mitigating their occurrence. And then last period, there is the time period. And this is when milestones, capabilities, outcomes, and disruptors are expected to occur. So the next slide. So look, every map should tell a story and it should engage the audience. So here's a sample roadmap that has, it's a strategic roadmap, and it has a strategic goal of attaining an inventory system capable of performing replenishment operations in an automatic and real-time fashion. So you can see in here that there's a simple step forward. And in the first year, there's a milestone for implementing modifications to an inventory application, and it should decrease labor costs. And then during that same year, there's a potential tax policy disruptor and risk with the supply chain. So subsequent periods after that have similar milestones and risks, and leading to the ultimate replenishment system. What you can see out of this is, when you're the audience, is it defines a strategic goal, and it offers a step path to success, and it allows a common frame of reference for everyone. Additionally, it provides an automatic context of timelines. You can see gaps if you're in that type of audience, any issues that you may see. And in essence, it invokes true engagement with anyone who's looking at this. So we had a survey assignment where we requested some samples from everyone. And we have a few of them that caught our attention, and I think Jennifer is going to discuss them. So, Jennifer.
Can everyone hear me okay? So the question is, what is the goal? So if you go to the next slide, the goal is the roadmap. So as Clay alluded to, we had you do kind of the survey to build your own roadmap. So if you go to the next slide, what we have is some results. So basically what we found is there was a pretty even split between hybrid outcome-driven and traditional roadmaps. So I found that really interesting. And we picked two roadmaps, and the two people who had those roadmaps are both here tonight. So I hope that you're gonna kind of play along and talk about them a little bit. So the first one is a traditional roadmap, and it looks like there is a concentration of the initiatives kind of in like the systems and capabilities. So this is Cynthia's roadmap, and I was wondering, Cynthia, if you would like to say a few words about this by chance.
That's actually not my roadmap.
Yeah, that's Teresa's roadmap. That's me.
Sorry. I got
That's
you
okay.
guys switched up. Okay, do you mind saying a few words about this?
Next.
Okay.
So is there a question there?
Just, tell us a little bit about your roadmap. I mean, the initiatives, and then maybe a little bit about kind of how you chose the risks or anything.
We have a lot of initiatives that are slated to happen in the next 7 to 10 months. So I just grabbed a couple of the biggies, and it is an IT focus because they affect everything else that's going on. Because we're a government organization, there's always a risk of reduction of reduction of budgets, and also because we are worldwide and deploy agents in places none of us really want to go, remote comms is always a risk. So what we are trying to do with these two initiatives in particular is reduce duplicate systems. We have several systems that store similar types of data. So we're deploying one that will consolidate and integrate across not just our organization, but across law enforcement for local, county, other Fed agencies into one big system. So we'll reduce a lot of things by doing that. Infrastructure, data, manpower, it's a big deal. And the other big thing is a network redesign. That is a mandate that we're having to adhere to. As far as from the business side, the last one on the bottom is a standard agent toolset deployment so that every agent that we deploy worldwide will have a grab and go kit and be able to do everything they need to do for investigations. And at the top, the result of that is going to be consistent capabilities across the agency, because we have agents that are here in the U.S., we have them worldwide, we also have them on ships up deployed. So consistent capabilities are a big deal for these guys, especially when you're talking about investigating criminal cases. So that's just a tidbit of what we have going on. Some is IT based. The toolset deployment is directly mission based.
If you go to the next map, this one is a business outcome driven roadmap, and we picked one traditional and one outcome driven because we thought that that was a really good balance. Cynthia, this is yours. Would you mind just saying a few words about a little bit about your kind of your initiatives, and then maybe your disruptors or your concerns in this roadmap that you picked out?
Sure thing. Thank you. So I'm assigned to the Client Master Data Management, or we say CMDM for short. And for that project, we have a number of integration points that we're looking to do. And each time we integrate with another one of our systems, we have the ability to reduce redundant data entry. So currently, our systems are siloed, and if you set up a client account, you're setting it up in our sales system. You then manually go and enter that information, which is very similar data in the billing system, and then again in our lab system, once again in the logistics system, and so on. So what we've done is we've done some foundational work for CMDM, and we're now integrating with Salesforce so that we can standardize our client account setup process, and that's kind of like step one. And then from there, then we're integrating with some of our other systems, which then allows us to scrub the data, standardize the data, and you enter it into Salesforce once, and then we will populate that information to the respective systems so that you don't have to type it over and over again. And the data is now more standardized. There's less data entry errors, that you could possibly have. And each time we add another system onto the to the standardization process, we're reducing the client account setup process probably about by 25% each time we bring on one of those systems. So, you know, we always, as a lab company, we always have government regulations that we have to be concerned about, especially for the billing system and how we handle personal protected information, PHI and PII, and then PCI for credit card information. So sometimes the government says that we're not storing data in the correct manner, so I put that as a possible disruptor. And then just change in general is difficult for all of the regional groups that we have, and there's always a concern that there's slow adoption to kind of stop doing things the way they do today and moving over to this new standardized client account setup process.
Thank you so much for adding that in, and I really appreciate you both, speaking up. I know it's not always so easy in class. Okay, so now we're going to move on a little bit to kind of the purpose of roadmaps. So when and why would you build a roadmap? So go to the next slide. So basically, roadmaps serve to improve communication, both between the EA team and the executives. It can improve corporate buy-in at various stakeholders at various levels with the stakeholders. It can help improve decision-making activities and connect the strategies with the execution. So that's really important when you have a lot of different things going on. Additionally, it can also help to kind of prove the value of the EA to the enterprise by measuring those business disruptions that we've got identified in the roadmap. So it's really important that you identify your proper business disruptions throughout your roadmap. So there are a lot of changes that are occurring through the transition to the future state, and this can be improved through initiatives, and these initiatives can be supplemented by the roadmap. So roadmaps can move your EA team forward in a unified manner and focus that team in the proper area, so focus their work in the proper area and prevent people from duplicating work so you have the most efficient team possible. It also helps to communicate those revitalized strategies to the enterprise as a whole and routinely engages your stakeholders. Next slide. Stakeholder engagement. So this is really important because they need to be engaged in the process of EA, and EA is really a very complicated process. So if you communicate the value of the EA team, they will understand more and be more committed to the process of the EA. It is also serves as a tool or a system to kind of discuss the implementation activities. And if you discuss those activities rather than tell them the activities, I feel that they would be more ingrained and have more ownership of those activities rather than you just telling them those activities. So it's more of a communication rather than a lecture. So I mentioned the business disruptions. So these do have an impact to the roadmap and the enterprise as a whole. So you can use them to directly measure the value of the EA, which is really important because EA doesn't, sell anything. You don't make anything from EA, but you can have a value. So you can show the tangible value. Also, the disruptions help provide a benchmark for your reviews, and those reviews can be scheduled on a regular basis, or you can have them at specific points after disruptions change or there are any updates. These changes can be really extensive, and they can require adequate guidance systems, and these systems really are kind of roadmaps, and each roadmap has a different purpose and a different style. So we have 4 different styles that are identified on the next slide. And McGregor have 4 styles that they discussed, and 2 of them are planning and 2 of them are execution. So basically there is a strategic planning, which is a high-level plan that the enterprise follows to implement strategy development. And then there's an operational planning, which is also a high level, and this can communicate how events support the strategic roadmap action plan. So I see it kind of as maybe like a supplement to the strategic planning roadmap. And then there's 2 execution roadmaps, and those are more drilled down, detailed views, and they really support the strategic planning and the operational planning roadmaps. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to John, and he's going to kind of tell you a little bit about, building the actual roadmap.
Thanks, Jennifer. Can everyone hear me? Okay, cool. All right, so we've kind of covered the what and why, and so the next step is really kind of the how. And starting with really the goals, Gartner provided some high-level goals to shoot for when creating a roadmap. Overall, it's important to ensure there's consensus on what the enterprise is trying to accomplish by clarifying the type of change targeted. At the end of the day, the goal of the roadmaps are to help the stakeholders visualize the enterprise future objectives. To gain consensus and buy-in, it's important to identify all the stakeholders that will be involved and engage them often and early. And I think, as someone kind of mentioned earlier, no one roadmap will speak to or satisfy all the stakeholders' needs. So kind of a draft outline of how many roadmaps to create, what style of roadmaps to create, and the purpose of each roadmap needs to be completed when you're working with the stakeholders, and it should be done in an iterative fashion. The roadmaps should also capture the essence of the strategy that we're trying to attain with the change. It's important to keep the concepts at a high level and really stay out of the details. The messages within the roadmap should be tailored in a way that quickly can be understood and making sure that they're targeted towards a large audience of the enterprise. And then I think one of the key points is the roadmap's all about the journey, and roadmaps should be the simple pictures to help visualize it. And then kind of the last bucket, but typically there's a strategic roadmap that's created, and then any additional roadmaps that are created, as Jennifer alluded to, with the various purpose or roadmap styles, they all need to end up tying back to the strategic roadmap. Gartner listed out 4 styles of roadmaps, and they're plotted on a quadrant with 2 dimensions: focus and level of detail. With focus, the longer term side of the quadrant would tie it to more strategic areas, and then the shorter term tends to be more tactical in nature. And then the other dimension being level of detail, as you're at the higher level, it's more of the conceptual or contextual type, and then the lower level describes the future state in more of the implementation or logical perspectives. Going in order of what I thought was most applicable to EA, we'll start in the top right corner, which is strategic planning. And this style helps the executive leadership really define and communicate the big picture and strategic direction that they want the enterprise to take. For me, this related back to our goals and initiatives components of the EA Cube, and subsequently, this will have the most amount of EA involvement. We'll see in the next slide an example of a strategic planning template. Then moving to the lower right-hand quadrant, we have the strategic execution roadmap, and this is really the when and how for completing the strategic plan. And this is developed primarily with the EA working with the IT and business subject matter experts to really drill into more detail on the future state. Then looking at the top left corner, we have the operational planning roadmap, and this really is the roadmap to help the leadership visualize the impacts of the change. They assist with the planning, execution, and also provide status updates and support any replanning activities related to executing the strategic plan or portions of it. This roadmap typically is driven by a PMO or project managers with EA assistance. And then in the lower left corner, we have the operational execution, and this is probably the least amount of involvement with EA, but it's the most tactical roadmap. They provide input into the strategic plan, but pretty much they're more of an input as opposed to a key driver to this or implementer for the strategic plan. Yellow and blue. So the next slide is a strategic or strategy plan roadmap. And just for sake of full disclosure, the first roadmap I've actually created was for this class activity. So my knowledge is really solely based on the research we've done for this topic and the reading we've done. I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night though as well. But I think the strategy roadmap does seem to have the most involvement with EA, with the enterprise architects, and looking at this template, which I thought was a good example of breaking down kind of the three key components. Which one is visualizing the leadership's objectives, and then showing the targeted outcomes, and then the last section is really showing a sequenced kind of an optimal sequence of initiatives broken out by various organizational departments. The last piece that Gartner or a key point that Gartner did note on roadmaps that I thought I'd call out is that one of the big points of a roadmap is to keep it simple. And this jumped out at me because in a former life I used to do quite a bit of usability engineering, and one of my favorite books is Don't Make Me Think, and it's also a credo I try to live by every day. But it had some general rules that I think applied to keeping it simple, and I think the first is make sure the roadmap's easy to understand. If it isn't, it won't be understood. The next is keeping in mind that human behavior when they're presented with an image is to scan. And so when you're putting in content, think billboards as opposed to novels. And then try to minimize noise. Too many things on a roadmap will draw the user's attention and could cause confusion. It's a real good book, Pinky. It's a short read too. So the last step is really just a roadmap in 6 steps. There could be a 7th, which is acceptance, but I didn't list that. But the first couple slides or first couple steps include really the heavy lifting to creating a roadmap, and that's really the discovering and envisioning. The first step in working in an iterative process is to define the current and future states, and then essentially also getting the targeted outcomes that you're trying to accomplish within those future states. This is where you would update all the applicable documentation to, or update or create the existing documentation at all levels of the enterprise, and then create probably your targeted future state documentation. Once you get those 2 steps knocked out, the next big piece is conducting a gap analysis and prioritization of the findings from the gap analysis. This is where you essentially determine the deltas that exist and then define the initiatives or projects to remove the gaps or deltas. These steps were borrowed from Parnitsky, who suggested completing a gap closure strategy to accomplish this exercise. And one of the goals that should feed into the prioritization is making sure that they're based on the value that the initiatives are going to provide the enterprise. Once you have a prioritized list of initiatives, then it's kind of probably a simple step, but it's something that's necessary, and that's actually sequencing out the initiatives. And the sequence needs to take into account factors such as the dependencies between the initiatives, projected duration of the initiatives, and obviously keeping in mind the priority that was given in the previous steps. And then once the sequence is determined, that's where the fun starts, where you can actually create the roadmap and a visual presentation of all the steps that have been previously completed. One of the key themes of making the roadmap is really to collaborate with the various stakeholders to gain buy-in. And so while you're creating this, it's also important to review, refine, and eventually finalize the roadmaps with all stakeholders. And then, like many artifacts, the roadmap maintained value, and a periodic set time should probably be set to keep the roadmaps up to date, and then obviously update if things occur that require updating throughout the year. So that's really kind of the 6 steps. The next, I'll hand this off to Michael, who's going to cover strategies for success.
Hi guys, everyone hear me? I'm gonna see like 50 yeses show up in the screen. Look at that. Go. All right. So strategies for success. This is kind of like I get the opportunity to give you back what we just saw, and maybe hopefully get some questions you guys have to ask. Though I think roadmaps are actually pretty straightforward, but to me they always get kind of done wrong sometimes. They're too IT focused, or there are not enough business objectives in place. So the 3 strategies we happen to choose. First one I call ready, shoot, aim, and it's you actually intentionally go out there and put something that's not perfect because you want to get it out there in front of your stakeholders. Too many times, engineers, IT professionals, perfectionists want to wait until it's all set to go, but don't wait. Get it out there, and that way you'll actually start incorporating more of your stakeholders' opinions, more of your stakeholders' concerns into your roadmap, instead of going a long way down and find out later, like, man, I wasn't even close. Also, make a few attempts to get the roadmap that speaks to them. Just because you like that favorite modeling tool, or you like PowerPoint, or you like this, you might find out they like sticky notes, or they like a whiteboard kind of conversation where you go and you turn it into a drawing for them later, but they really like the interaction of the whiteboard. And then once you get that initial engagement, that initial conversation, keep it going. They may think of things later. I usually like a back and forth kind of thing. You talk with them, you brainstorm them, you go, hey, what do you think, where we're going? And then you bring it back to them going, is this what we talked about? Is this really where we wanted the head to go? And then they give you that feedback, and it's gives you the tweaks to the direction, and it also gives them a sense of ownership that it's their roadmap, not your roadmap. It's not the EA team's roadmap. It is the stakeholders, business, and product development and salesmen's roadmap. Any questions? Anyone talk to their stakeholders every day? Every week? Nobody talks to their stakeholders. Awesome. All right, go ahead and hit next slide. Thank you. All right, form fit function. And it's borrowed from a system engineering constructs of a bolt or something along those lines. It's got a form, it's got a fit, and a function. A form is an understandable message. Is the form of it actually speak to people? Is it usable? Fit, does it integrate into the enterprise? Is it the right type of thing for your enterprise? Or are you trying to fit someone else's tool that they've used into something that really doesn't work for you guys? And then function, does it provide utility, or is it just a pretty picture? You want it to be able to do something for your organization. So in this and in the write-up we did, we want to set up a bunch of questions to kind of checklist, did you create a roadmap that has good form, good fit, and good function? Does the presentation simple? Is it something that the audience can understand? That's a form pieces. Fit, does the roadmap fit the enterprise? Can it be used to perform informed business decisions? Does it have the right business objectives or challenges? And then function, does it guide the enterprise? Does it help tie the stakeholders and the providers all together heading down in the same direction? Do they all see the vision and know how to head there? Next. So many times we read in our Gartner writings, and actually I think in all of them just about, is don't let it be a one-shot deal. You know, iterate on the roadmaps, improve your understanding and buy-in, and keep that going. Too many times I think upper management wants to just pay for it once, and it's like, hey, we got a roadmap. Why are we looking at it again? Did we do this wrong? Did we not figure it out right? Avoid that tendency. Try to explain to them that just because you had an initial plan doesn't necessarily mean it was the right plan or the complete plan. Dwight D. Eisenhower's known for fame for saying, plans are never right. These roadmaps are just the same thing, but you always need the plan. And the emphasis there is that you have enough, by doing the planning, you bring enough data in to become more aware of the environment and the things that could affect where you want to go with your organization. When you update the plan, use your stakeholder preferred working style. It could be that whiteboard, it could be post-it notes. Make sure you're gathering their information so they're reacting and they can provide you valuable feedback to your roadmap. If they're just nodding or sleeping in the audience, you're probably not engaging them and getting the input that you need to make it right. Trigger changes based on business disruptions. So business disruptions are those things that either stock changes or standard changes, or you want to get into a certain market and you're not really sure how to get there. They disrupt how you do business, and those can cause you to change your roadmap because now you're like, oh, we're going to head in that direction, but it looks like someone already took that space, or we're too late, or some other thing. So be ready to make those adjustments when those events occur. And then keep the roadmap current to handle disruptions to business outcomes and capture the desired future state. That's kind of the standard. That's kind of what you want to do with the roadmap, is to make sure that it's addressing where you want to go and any particular hazards you see along the way. Okay, next. So that's our presentation. We hope it was interesting and engaging. The roadmaps used to develop the future EA state is a pretty obvious thing, as most of the readings we've had, especially this last chapter we just did a writing on. The audience appropriate messaging should be ensure the stakeholder buy-in. So don't speak your language, speak their language. Get it into things they understand. In some cases, get it into the most people can understand. Roadmaps keep stakeholders involved with decision making. Very key. It's their roadmap, not the EA professionals. Business change can be communicated through the use of roadmaps. Absolutely. If more people know where you're heading, you might get some help to get there that you might not have otherwise had. And then keep them up to date. Keep them reviewed. You know, if business disruptors come in there and something changes the way, the path you're heading on or where you want to head, get it updated so that everyone now sees, oh, we're taking a slight turn here and we're going to get there. And that's our, I think it's the next slide. That's our presentation. On here is our percentages in there, and this is all the different areas people work on, at least what they put in their roadmaps. And we thought it was spectacular that there was this much variety in the class. Any questions, concerns? Just want to get out of here.
Very good presentation and a lot of good content. So guys, raise up your questions.
I'll say to everyone, it was fun working on this. The roadmap piece, I think we got really lucky getting it as one of ours. It was a lot of really good
question.
I see it says, where does the highway lead to? It leads to your roadmap down at the very end.
Clay answered that it leads to the future.
It's your future EA.
I'll take out a crystal ball and look at it.
So
As long as-
nobody has any other questions?
Thank you everyone for doing the project. We know it wasn't quite as easy as a traditional survey. Any feedback on whether you thought that was a good exercise? Too much like a test?
So how often do you need to update your roadmaps? What's a frequency, a good frequency on updating?
The update frequency is around 6 months, twice a year, and make it consistent. What people don't want is the roadmap changing every other month by a little bit. They want that consistent view. So they recommend about twice a year or biannually to keep it up to date.
What happens
Yeah,
if there's some sort of unexpected change or addition? Do you wait the 6 months, or do you just kind of update it, ad hoc?
If the business eruption, which is usually how they coin it, comes in, you do update it ad hoc because you want to get people on that path as soon as possible. But make sure it's heavy enough to kind of cause that change in your pattern.
The only thing I'd add there, it probably also depends on style. So, I mean, Gardner kind of referred to the strategic planning roadmap, and they mentioned that some people actually just use that as kind of a reporting status to executive leadership. So, in that case, they recommended updating as needed. So.
I would also say that if it is, if it's even, if what has occurred was a identified risk or like a disruptor, that's even better, right? To be able to update it right after.
Hey, John, I think Pinky has a question for you, and then I follow on. You could probably answer the next one as well.
All right, sorry. Do you create a remote roadmap for each of the projects? Well, you definitely can. I think I think my take on it was that top right corner with the strategy planning, that should list out all the projects and the initiatives in a kind of a sequenced order, and then definitely on the planning side, or how and when those are going to get accomplished, those can be broken up into various strategic executions. And obviously, if you go with the planning roadmap style, absolutely you could do one per project. I think the goal is to really just you have to make it work for your enterprise. I mean, that's what I got out of it. Now, again, I think we have quite a few people just reading the discussion forums that have actually executed these. At my organization, we go through a lot of the steps that you would do to create a roadmap, but we actually don't create them. So I don't know. Well, I don't know if anyone else wanted to share how it actually works, or some war stories.
I create roadmaps at work, and I think the moment you put a sequence of capabilities, when you know what I mean, these are the capabilities that we need to move us from the current state to the future state. Generally, you don't get in too much trouble at that point, but the minute you put them in some type of chronological order, the moment you publish, it's outdated. Somebody comes along and says, no, we want to move this before this item and that item before this item. And I mean, the sequence changes so often that I find it challenging to even kind of keep up with. And I mean, one time they had me I was changing the roadmap almost on a weekly basis. So it just got insane because, they don't adhere to it. Like it's a vision, right? We need these capabilities. We have some idea or some plan of how we're going to do it, but that never seems to match reality. The sequence of events really turn out to be something much different than you planned, right? So I think that makes the updating challenging. It's like, where are we? I don't know. I got to ask them today. You know what I'm saying? To see what, and now they even get to the point where they're not going to even tell us what they want to do next. The business. They'll wait until we get very close, until they're finished doing what they're doing, and they're holding out, right? They're holding out to the last possible moment to say, this is the next most important thing we need to do. So which makes it really difficult to say, okay, we're going to do things in this order. So they kind of go, yeah, okay, you can put it down on paper, but we're not going to, you know what I mean? We're not going to adhere to it. So that's somewhat of a challenge for me. Does anybody else have any similar experiences in that sense, especially when you're getting sequence? No, I'm alone in this one.
Yeah, for you.
I think a lot with everything we're looking at, what we read in the guides and what people are doing out there. There's a mixture in our group of those that seem to be doing certain things right, and others doing other things right. And I don't think, and maybe there's a few in the group that have like everything right. It's like, wow, I wish I worked for them. Kind of thing.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to mention about, because the whole roadmap planning, as you said, is you put something down on paper and then it changes right away. And I think that it is a communication point, right? So you put it down on paper so that you can change it, right? But unless you've put it down on paper, you can't really talk about it. You can't adjust. You can't maneuver at all. And so, I think that, the value of the roadmap is not to solidify, but to elicit plans.
That's a good point, Daniel. And also remember the speaker, I believe he was from Lowe's. He said, as an EA architect, be prepared to make decisions. And I think some of these plans are those decisions. So you've got to be careful, I think, of people changing the plan because someone went and made a decision and it's got to stick. Otherwise, you'll never get to any destination because you'll keep getting the ending changing in front of you. And so you'll arrive nowhere. So I would caution that if you find people changing the plan, part of it is to just get it written down, like Daniel said.
Yeah, I think getting folks to stick to the plan is challenging. And I guess from EA's perspective, we might have put those capabilities in a certain order because there's certain dependencies or other projects that are dependent upon those capabilities. So we put them in that order for a reason, but that doesn't always mean it happens that way. And then we find out later after the implementation of, let's say, the project team, because the changes are kind of happening at the project level, at the local teams. And they don't always convey that they're even making those changes back to EA. So it's usually like, oh, well, it's, the fourth quarter of 2016, we should have such and such a capability delivered by now. And then you find out, no, you don't have that capability. It's not available. Somebody made a decision to postpone it and put something else in its place. So that's I think we struggle at my company with that kind of thing. And then how does one enforce. All, you know what I mean? All the various project teams, and not only moving the capabilities and not delivering them, sometimes they will even change the scope. So, oh, we're never going to get that done by June's release, right? We're not going to get that in. So then they'll say, okay, well, we'll give it a trim. We're going to trim the scope, and so it's not being delivered in its full expected form. So even at that, you're still not able to use it at the end of June. They kind of did something so that they can say, yeah, we were able to deliver this, and we'll have to do it in the next release. So either they modified the capability, the scope of the capability, or decided that they were going to do it, at a different time. And those events don't always flow back up to EA until we find out, like, oh, we were hoping for these, capabilities because we have another project that can't reach its goals unless we deliver that. So I think at my company, we certainly have work to do on how to get that feedback loop going, right, between the local groups and EA so that we're like more informed about the changes that take place.
Cynthia, I think that you jumped onto probably a very big challenge, especially multiple IT projects. But I think early on in our reading and our discussions as a group, a thing that struck me is that the roadmap should get people on board, and also it should be addressing business concerns, not logical IT progression. And that may be why you're not necessarily getting the buy-in sometimes. If there seems to be a business purpose, and maybe it's a little piece of each application that needs to go accomplish that business purpose and have an integration event, that may work better than trying to make the flows independent of each other. And it may actually improve your buy-in from the top to go, stop mutzing around, guys, and just concentrate on getting something done versus, working your own agenda. I don't have an answer on how you do that, but I think that may be a tactic that could work if you can get it under a theme or in a certain direction.
That's a good suggestion. I guess I'm just sharing some of my experiences around the roadmaps. I know that last year we had a huge push from EA that every product that we had to put together a roadmap. It was like they gave marching orders so that we can see. And then a year later, we go back and we look at those roadmaps, and they're not so willing to do it this year because they feel like they did all of this work, and those roadmaps, again, not many people actually adhered to the plan. So was the exercise really worth it, right? And this year they're kind of going, yeah, we're not doing roadmaps again. Right? Like, we're not updating them this year. So we're even getting kind of pushback for the product managers to produce a road, to update the roadmaps. So we have a challenge at our company around the roadmaps, to say the least.
Roadmaps not show any value.
I think that's where we're struggling. EA was kind of with, being the governance group, right? We need to have roadmaps so that EA can look across all the products and see what's coming down the pike and look at this product line and this program and, kind of make some decisions based on what's happening. And again, reality, we learned that they don't follow the path of the roadmap. None of them did. So they kind of felt this year it wasn't worth going through the whole, effort of updating them. So it's just interesting, big push on roadmaps last year. This year, not so much.
Things lost in transition.
Peanut butter? But anyway, that's just kind of I guess the keeping them up to date, version control, making them available to people, like knowing where they are, right? You know, again, these artifacts are great, but how does one even know where to find them? If you're not, you know, the person who's championing and communicating, right? Shopping it around. So it's hard for that information to be shared in a way that makes it effective. But I think it's a great tool to really kick something off. You know, you're more in the visionary state. Look, this is kind of what we're doing, and you're right. It's going to change, but it certainly gets people to understand that there's some incremental value and the direction that you're heading, even if the direction kind of takes a couple turns along the way. All right, well, I'm going to stop now.
Sure. Anybody else wants to go and convey your views? It was a great presentation, and thank you all for participating. It was especially the participation work where everybody had to go through and put a lot of effort. So innovative idea by Team Roadmap. Good job. Sure, Ben. We
So,
can give your points.
I did have a question for you because it came up in one of my other classes. Are we still required to deliver homework assignment on Easter Sunday, or we get a day extension for the holiday?
I can check with Dr. Ocker. I'm sure she'll be okay with it.
Would she be okay with you making the decision and telling us?
I was safe enough to tell our last Dr. Ocker.
Okay. I had to try.
I will check and I will definitely let you know.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so everybody's preparing for Easter. Easter egg hunt. Probably in our next class.
Yeah, I get to travel for work on Good Friday and on Easter Sunday, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, the benefits of traveling. So, good job, guys. Have a good weekend. Happy Easter. And we will sync back on Tuesday unless you guys have any other questions.
Good night.
So, good night, everyone.
Night, guys.
Good night.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, everyone.